So, the impact that film has on the world is profound. Whether it's an animated short, an indie, or a Hollywood blockbuster, film has a huge influence on attitudes, fashion, music, politics, and culture. The revolutionary filmmaker we're about to hear from has consistently pushed the boundaries of convention, and he's become a cult figure in the process. From Reservoir Dogs to The Hateful Eight, a Tarantino film is instantly recognizable and never forgotten. Please welcome Quentin Tarantino.
Hear what? Uncomfortable silences.
Get to it.
Adult supervision is required.
Starting to see pictures, ain't you?
No one said this job's supposed to be easy.
Nobody said it's supposed to be that hard, neither.
Quentin Tarantino.
Hey, everybody.
Oh, my God.
Thanks for coming out.
Yeah. Oh, look at all those cameras. Wow. Okay. So we just saw 5 young filmmakers. I think you met them backstage.
Yeah, I sure did.
Right? So tell us how you got your start.
Well, it's kind of a two-pronged answer to that. When it comes to actually me becoming a professional filmmaker, I did that through screenwriting. Basically, I tried to write a few scripts. I wrote True Romance and tried to get that going for a long time. And
Of True Romance.
yeah, I couldn't even sell it, forget about getting it going. And then I wrote Natural Born Killers, all right? And I tried to get that going for a long time, and I didn't have any success.
Like how long is long?
I think I tried 3 years on True Romance, and then I tried 2 years on Natural Born Killers.
Natural Born Killers.
And then from that, I wrote Reservoir Dogs, and it got made. After like 3 years on True Romance, 2 years on Natural Born Killers, after I wrote Reservoir Dogs, we were on the set shooting in about 6 months.
Wow.
You know, it was just one of those, it was one of those, if you were gonna invest in a movie for like $1.3 million, and you were going to take a chance on somebody, the script was really good. You could just look at the script and feel that it was going to be okay. Harvey Keitel was already attached. All right, so he gave us a vote of confidence. So it was through screenwriting that I got into the business in a professional way. However, how I sort of kind of learned filmmaking for as much as I ever did, all right, was I didn't go to film school or anything.
Did you really work in a video store?
Oh, absolutely.
Just
no, absolutely. For 5 years. All right. I wrote all those scripts. Not Reservoir Dogs, but everything else I wrote while I was working at that video store. And but the thing is, though, what was the thing? What I ended up doing was, instead of, I couldn't go to film school because I didn't have any money to go to film school. I tried to enroll in AFI, I got turned down. And so what happened was, I tried to make a movie. I borrowed a 16mm camera from a guy I barely knew, frankly, and I was going to make a short. And so I worked for a couple of weeks on this short, and then I thought, whoa, hey, Stranger Than Paradise had come out not that long ago, and so I was like, well, I don't know what I can do with a short, but I could do a feature. And so then I worked for 3 years shooting this 16mm feature. Now, the feature ended up becoming nothing but guitar picks at the end of the day, but I kind of learned how to make a movie.
You're self-taught.
Yeah, I didn't know. When you look at the stuff that I did in the first part of it, I didn't really know what I was doing. But the stuff 3 years later that I had shot was better. I had kind of learned what I was doing. And I basically only, on the course of those 3 years, maybe put out about $3,000. I mean, I only had a minimum wage job, but that was actually a lot. I did learn a lot about filmmaking, and I did it for a lot cheaper than I would have at a university.
Wow. Okay, so your films have some common elements. They're kind of dark, there's humor, there's great dialogue, amazing soundtrack, but the stories are very different. So how do you come up with the different stories? They're in different genres, they're very different.
Well, I do, I'm a fan of genre. I mean, there's a whole lot of directors, especially a lot of the directors that came out of, before the movie brats, before the Scorseses and the Spielbergs and the De Palmas, the directors that came out in the late 60s, early 70s were coming from a very much post-60s anti-establishment kind of thing. And you get the impression that they considered genre a bad word. They wanted to consider themselves artists that were above genre. And if they did genre, it was always deconstruction of genre. That's not me. I can appreciate that, but I love genre. I love genre movies growing up. And now, I'm trying to deconstruct it as well, but not from a cynical, I don't have respect for it kind of way. I just want to do my own version. I want to do my own take on it, my own thing of it. Having said that, whatever pleasures there are from that genre, I want to deliver. I mean, do I think, the Kill Bill movies sit on a higher plane than 75% of most of the films that played on Black Belt Theater on local television in the 70s? Yeah, I actually do think it exists on a slightly higher plane. And not all of them, not 100% of them, but 75% of them. Nevertheless, 100% of them delivered some entertainment value of martial art movies that I liked. And if I can't deliver that, then I'm just doing a art film meditation on genre, which is not what I'm about at all.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite Tarantino film?
No.
You think he's any good?
No, I love them all. But the thing, every once in a while, I'll get one will move to the top of the pack for a short period of time.
So, how about today?
Today, I'll go back to my standard answer, Reservoir Dogs, because it's the one that changed my life.
I just watched it again on Sunday, and it's still good. So, once you have an idea, what's your creative process like? You have 10,000 creative people here, and they'd love to hear about your process.
Well, it's kind of it's interesting, as a writer, everything with me starts from being a writer. And the only film I've ever done that was adapted from something else somebody else wrote was Jackie Brown, which is adapted from a Nomar Leonard novel. And I love Jackie Brown, and I'm very happy about that. And I could maybe do something like that again. But I get a tremendous amount of satisfaction when I've done the locations on a movie, we've spent all the time to shoot the movie, and then now I'm going around the world. I'm traveling the entire globe, selling it and going to the different countries as it opens up and everything. And so maybe I'm sitting in a restaurant in Germany or in Brazil or something, and my movie's opening there and I'm doing the press on it. There's this incredible satisfaction for me to think back to usually only 2 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, not like 5 years ago or 6 years ago, but only 2 years ago, to think that there was a moment in time where that me and a pen were sitting at a table in front of a blank piece of paper. And then 2 years later now, or 2.5 years later, I'm sitting in Brazil with this big movie that I've made that hopefully is entertaining the world. But knowing that I can all come back down to that pen and that piece of paper when it was just a thought in my head is very gratifying for me. Now, what gets me going on this story as opposed to another story, that's a little harder to determine. You know, it's almost like I'm a fish and there's a lot of hooks with bait out there, and you don't quite know.
Is your head like full
which
of
one
stories?
is? I don't know if it's jam-packed, but you know, there's always 3 or 4 stories I could do. And part of the answer to your question for the process is I trust myself as a writer. I trust my process. It's done very well by me, and so I have complete and utter trust in it. And what I mean by that is I know when something needs to sit in the incubator, and the incubator is here. And I never try to take anything out too soon. I never try to do anything that's premature. If I do, I realize it and I put it back. I know when it's time for it to come out. Wow. I know when it's time. And then I usually do a few building blocks to just make it more solid. And like one of the things I've said before, and it's true though, is, but it doesn't work for every single movie, but you know, if I can give you a knockout, blow your socks off opening credit sequence, I want to do that, all right? I want to grab you right from the very beginning. Now, not every movie is applicable for that, all right? But if I can do that, I will. And normally that will be revolved around a song. So when I start coming up with some idea that I'm thinking about, I have a record room. I have a big vinyl collection. The room's kind of designed like a used record store with bins and broken down in different categories. And then I'll go through those records, and what I'm looking for is, I'm looking for the beat of the movie. I'm looking for the sound of the movie. And that might be other old soundtracks. That might be rock and roll music. It could be, in Glorious Bastards, German music. It could be all kinds of things. But I'm trying to find the rhythm that the movie plays.
Have you written anything when you're doing that, or the idea is still in your head?
No. This is this is a process that goes all throughout until I actually lock print. But this is before I've even officially started. Okay. But I'm really starting to think seriously about it.
Okay.
And when I find some song that I can just kind of pace around in my room and imagine a really groovy opening credit sequence, and everybody at the Cannes Palais is just loving it in my little brain, all right, that goes a long way to encouragement, and I go further.
Okay.
And even as I'm writing and stuff, and when I want a little pick-me-up, I just go in and put some of that music on and paste it, and now I'm right back in it again. I'm like in love all over again.
Well, the music's a huge part of your film. So, okay, I have to ask you about technology. So anyone can pretty much make a film today. The technology is pretty accessible, software, which we make, hardware. And I'm just wondering, do you think that's a good thing? Do you think it's great for all these filmmakers to be able to make films?
Yeah, I think there's a parenthetical downside to it that is completely dwarfed by the upside, and the upside is the fact that with the technology that exists today, filmmaking can be a democratic process that it never was before. Basically, other people other than rich white men can now make movies. And
a lot of them are here.
Yeah. Well, it's also, it's a kind of, and well, also in a weird way, now that the technology has become more conducive, where literally, a kid in a project can actually make a movie about their life, can make their version of 400 Blows if they want to, all right, and they have the tenacity to take it all the way. That is available to them in a way that was never available to me. And there's a little part of me is a little jealous about that, frankly, to tell you the truth. All right, but there is, so that is this really terrific aspect.
So you're going to tell me the
about
downside?
That. Well, to me, the downside is I there was a thing when the fact that when you had to go and convince people and get the money to make a movie, there was a filtering out process. All right? Not every movie needs to be made. Not every movie should be made. All right? There is some hurdles.
That's
that it's not bad to go through, all right? Look, and I'm talking about one of these guys who made one of those movies that did not need to be made. It needed to be made to teach me how to make a movie, but no one ever really needed to see that fucking thing, all right? You know, But it did its job for me, all right? And me learning about that. Having said that, the other, to me, the parenthetical that really is the biggest, and you know, it's actually not a bad thing, it's just, I think it puts even more of a responsibility on the young filmmaker to work hard to achieve a level of craft. Because now craftlessness is almost being, if not encouraged, accepted. And quality. There's a quality of a look when it comes to certain work has dropped by half. And that's actually me being kind of generous, compared to, say, the 90s, when people had to shoot their movies on film. And actually, the cinematographer was an important part of the process of making a movie, go figure. And you know, a lot of the movies, I say, they lack a visual quality, which I can't truly understand, because in the 90s when we were trying to make our movies, whether it was $60,000 or $160,000 or $1 million, we were trying to make them look as good as we possibly can. We wanted them to look like a real movie. Now, you could also shoot something like Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer on 16 millimeter, and now the grain itself becomes a quality. The fact that it looks like Vietnam footage is actually part of the quality about the movie that makes it work. Nevertheless, there still is a visual component to it. And the thing that, to me, the saddest part of the parenthetical is I don't even know how important that is to young filmmakers. The visual aspect of the movie. I think they've kind of bought the dogma and mumblecore kind of thing that a movie should look like you just woke up.
I suspect there's a spectrum.
I think there is. I hope there is. But my point being is that doesn't damn everything else, the technology out there. It just makes it more, lays it more on the shoulders of the filmmaker to make it look more than like just a camcorder movie.
Totally.
But you know, at the same time, I've seen those camcorder movies actually be quite effective. So it's just, it's just it's all about the filmmaker.
Well, let's stay on that just for a second, because film distribution has also changed, and like people can watch movies independent of what they are, pretty much anywhere on any device. So you're on a plane and you see someone watching Reservoir Dogs on their phone. So is that okay?
Well, okay. This is not that I've heard this question before, but I've heard this idea.
Okay.
All right. I might just be completely out of touch, but anybody here who has watched a movie from beginning to end on their cell phone that maybe wasn't on an airplane, but just like at home, watch it on your cell phone? Clap your hands.
Ask them about a tablet.
Okay, well, you know, this is 10,000 people. That was actually a weak clapping of hands. All right. Unless I intimidated you, which I'm not trying to, all right? You know, I'm not saying that's the worst thing on the planet Earth. I just can't imagine, sitting down and watching There Will Be Blood, you know, from beginning to end on my cell phone.
Of course, there are no 12-year-olds here either.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. Well, in a weird way, I can imagine watching Frozen on if I was going to watch something like that, it would be like that, you know? You know, ultimately, look, growing up in Los Angeles in the 70s, we had to exist with the 3:30 movie on Channel 7, all right, where they would
after-school movie?
Yeah, they would cut the crap out of it, so it was completely unrecognizable with tons of commercials. You know, they actually once fit Lawrence of Arabia into a 90-minute slot. So I guess watching it on an iPhone is better than that.
Okay. So,
but like watching it on the plane device or something, oh, that's good.
That's not that.
No, that's exciting. Yeah, but it's a little better. It's a little better.
All right, but
also you're not holding it.
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't imagine holding your screen for 2.5 hours.
Yeah, a short maybe.
Yeah,
a short.
But my movies are kind of long.
They are kind of long. Okay, but good. All right, you've won lots of awards. You were named one of Time's 100 most influential people. You've got a star in the Hollywood Walk of Fame. But how do you personally define success?
That's a good question. Look, at the end of the day, I mean, if you're going to get right down to it, hopefully, the way I define success is when I'm finished with the career, I'm considered one of the greatest filmmakers who ever lived. That would
check.
That would be successful, And then to go further than that, I was just like, that it would be considered like a great artist, and not just a film director, but a great artist, with other artists who don't just direct. But recently I had a thought that would be a really, really nice thought. I was at a film festival in Lyon, France, and it's a festival dedicated to older movies, so they have a lot of retrospectives and stuff. And I was sitting in a jam-packed movie theater watching Buster Keaton's The General. And everybody loved it. And it was a great night at the movies, and the movie was magnificent, and we all laughed, and we all enjoyed it, and there was even little kids in the audience, and they were digging it. And I go, wow, if 80 years from now, 80 years after, 60 years after my death, 80 years after I'd made the movie, if it was playing in a filled theater that people wanted to see it, and it was enjoyable, and they had the time that the people that I was watching with had watching The General, that would be really awesome.
That would be really awesome, and you have a pretty good chance. So I heard you've been doing some research on the 70s, my favorite decade, for your next project. Is there anything that you're working on there?
No, that's a slight misnomer. I mean, I am doing it, but it's not for a movie project. I'm working on a film critic project that's about the year in cinema 1970. That's a very important year in cinema, especially in the development of New Hollywood. But then I even opened it up to world cinema in that year. It was a pretty profound year, and it's too boring to go into the nuances of it here. But it's kind of a movable feast. I'm kind of figuring out what I want to do with it. Do I want to do it as a book? Do I want to do it as a documentary about that year in cinema? Do I want to do it as a 5 or 6 part podcast? I'm not quite sure. Me going to Lyon and actually showing about 12 movies from that year and talking before each of them, and then having a 2-hour symposium was like my first attempt, after studying it for 4 years, my first attempt to do something with it in public. So I'm still figuring it out.
Okay. All right, there's a rumor that you plan to retire after making your 10th film. And I think you've made 8 so far.
Right.
So is that true?
Yeah.
So 2 more films?
2 more.
That's all you have in you?
And then drop the mic. Boom. Tell everybody, match that shit.
Okay. So we're out of time, sadly. But before you go, I wanted to do a quick word association.
My favorite curse word? No, I'm joking.
Do it.
I think I already said it.
This is a creative arena. You may say whatever you like. Okay, so I'm going to give you a word, and you're going to give me 1 word back.
Okay.
All right, you ready? Okay, actor.
Artist.
Writer.
King.
Director.
God.
This is really good with you. Okay, this is 2 words. Pulp Fiction.
Palme d'Or.
Quentin Tarantino.
You can't do that with me. That's not fair.
That's 6 words. 1 word.
Artist.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, Quentin Tarantino.